IVM.
If more and more people are entering the field, it means that the field is actually making enough sound and enough people are interested in it, right? So there is potential for it to just basically explode to a larger degree. So we like the fact that people are coming into the marketplace. They're looking at this and saying, okay, this is a good potential market or subcategory to be in.
Hello and welcome to the Filter Coffee Podcast. As we all know, this lockdown has brought to a standstill innumerable number of businesses and enterprises. However, at the same time, some of them have really flourished, especially because of the lockdown. Fitness apps is one such category. While the number of kilometers you and I have run since the lockdown has come down drastically, or the number of steps we've taken has come down drastically, I'm told that the frequency of usage of these apps has just skyrocketed. To talk about this, we have the co-founder and CEO of probably one of the most exciting fitness apps out of India, StepSetGo. Welcome to the Filter Coffee Podcast, Shivjit Gatke.
Thank you so much, Karthik. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How's the lockdown treating you?
I am surviving, right? Even the team is surviving. Interestingly enough, what has happened is we thought the productivity level of our team and everything will go down considering everybody's working from home.
Right.
But we've just gone into overdrive, right? Because what has happened is every small meeting that happens in office that you just kind of break out of and you just talk, it has to be arranged as a separate Zoom call. So what has happened is those meetings kind of pile up, and in the end you're waking up at you're starting work at 10 and you're working till 12:30 the night every day, right? So it's just gone into overdrive, and I don't think lower productivity is something that is in our mind anymore at all.
No, I think I can completely relate to it. And for me, I think there's been two sides to this story, right? I'm sure you would have read all the digital transformation memes and jokes. But for the last year and a half, I've been asking, my own team and my larger organization about, we are clients of Microsoft Teams, and I've been telling them, let's do more on Teams. You don't necessarily have to meet all the time or get on a call all the time, etc. Right? And what I couldn't achieve through my clearly now not very good persuasion skills, we've been able to achieve through a virus. That's a good part. But I think the bad part, like you rightly said, I think the workday is just very easily clocking 12-13 hours without even trying, right?
Yeah, because there's no barrier left anymore, right? Because you get out of your bed and you sit on your desk and that's your workspace now. Yeah. So you feel like you have to, basically if there's anything else, you just go back and finish that, right? There is no clear distinction between home and work anymore. So that becomes a problem, at least for me.
Yeah. I wanted to, I'm sure there is a large part of this conversation where we'll talk about COVID and what's going on in the world of that. Mm-hmm. But I want to quickly rewind, and sort of start with how your own journey has sort of taken you. Okay. You're a hardcore advertising guy before this, haven't you been?
Yes, if you can say that, right? Because I've worked with 3 different agencies which are relatively large. I won't go into where I was working, but straight out of college, I knew advertising was something I wanted to do, because I thought, obviously all of us saw ads when we were kids and we thought we could come up with the best ads, right? Same story here. So I went, and then I realized I might not be the best person to come up with these ads, right? Because you realize that the hard way, because it's not as easy as just looking at an ad and saying I can come up with something better. But so as I said, I started working. I've worked with Duval Graham, I've worked with Publicis, I've worked with the WPP group, and at the end of all that, maybe 4.5 years back, I started with a friend of mine consulting our own brands in Bombay, right? And that's the time when we started working on the StepSetGo concept, because I wasn't associated with any agency. We were doing this on a freelance basis. And interestingly enough, StepSetGo, as the idea matured, was one of our clients. So basically, Steps and Go was something that we were building out on the side, and we were doing the branding, marketing, and essentially brand building aspects of Steps and Go. Who we were doing it, as in me and my friend were doing it, right? So we were actually the agency of what I am working as right now. So the agency of Steps and Go was us. So
since you mentioned the entire journey, how did it start for Steps and Go? What was the genesis of this idea?
Okay, so this is also an interesting story, right? So it was me. So we are 3 co-founders, 4 co-founders in total. I'll just talk about the 3 because the 4th one is silent. So out of the 3 co-founders, me, Abhay, and Misal, me and Misal went to school together, right? We were in a boarding school called Sahyadri, and we were the best of friends since then. And so the idea, Steps and Go as an idea was maybe the 5th or the 6th idea that we actually came up with, right? Because we were trying to come into this space. It wasn't the fitness space, but because I had an advertising background and Misal had a tech background, we were just trying to combine these things together and try and make a product out of it. So
I would ideally not interrupt you in this part of the conversation at all, but I'm extremely curious about which are the other ideas that you looked at and then didn't go with.
I will definitely tell you one that was almost made, right? I want to actually talk about that because I think it's still an interesting idea, and I don't think that anybody has made it to the scale that we wanted to make it, at least in India. So it's an interesting idea for somebody who's thinking about it and wants to take it forward, right? So I'll tell you what, the name was a work in progress. We were calling it Naughty Puppy, right? It was a solution for anybody who wants to buy a pet. Right? Because the idea started, funnily enough, as a Tinder for pets idea, but that matured way beyond that, right?
Wow.
So what the idea is that in case you're suppose you're a dog lover or a cat lover and you've never had a dog before. Let's take an example of a dog, right? You've never had a dog before. There are too many things that you have to consider before actually buying it or adopting one. And what happens after you adopt or buy a puppy, there are lots of things that you don't know. And I have seen a lot of pet owners make the same mistakes, right? All of them. And considering I've had dogs since I was a child, I kind of know to some degree how you can avoid these mistakes. And what this app was going to do was going to be a one-stop solution for everything related to your dog. So from which breed you should adopt or buy, depending on where you live, what kind of climate you live in and everything, to the finding the closest vet, finding a walker, tracking your dog's walk while he's going out for a walk, finding specific items for your dog that are specific to your dog's breed and what they need. So everything from booking your vet's appointments, reminding you to take him for a walk, reminding him to feed him, from getting dog food delivered to you, everything was going to be happening inside that application, right? So you wouldn't need to do anything yourself. Everything will be reminded, and all the solutions will be inside your phone for your pet partner.
So, like you said, this doesn't exist today, right? At least not in this shape and form.
It does not. So, interestingly enough, why we didn't go ahead with this, there are smaller apps that do one or two of these things, right? But what we found an Italian company called Bow Wow that did all this and more. And we saw the penetration of that app was they had about, I think around 30,000 downloads, and they were active for the last 3 years or 2 years, right? And then we kept, because we believe in complete market research, try and find out everything you can about what you're getting into, only then get into it, right? And because of the kind of research we did and because of the kind of case studies we stumbled upon, we thought that there was something that we were missing as to why these kind of products aren't working. And that didn't imbue a lot of confidence in us to take the plunge into trying to go and make this fully, right? We had everything from the business plan and everything ready. Even then we didn't take the plunge because we weren't completely sure, because we couldn't find anything that was similar that really worked.
Right.
So that is why we stopped there.
Fascinating. Right. And then you moved on to humans.
Then we moved on to humans. So the story of Steps and Go is also an interesting one, right? So Misal, me, and the third co-founder Abhay have had gym memberships since maybe when we were out of college, right? And we must have used them for maybe in 7 years, 7 times, right? So we realized the main problem when it came to fitness, at least for a larger chunk of the population, was that there's a limited amount of motivation that you have to continue your fitness journey, right? Because what you do is on the 1st of Jan, you'll come, I want a six-pack by next year. So you'll get a new gym membership, you'll go shopping, you'll buy new shoes, you'll do all that, you'll invite your friends, telling them about the new gym you've joined and all the cool classes that you're going to do throughout the year. What happens after that is you do it for 7 days. 8th day, you're sitting in Dulali having a beer, it gets a little late, and next day, there's no gym. And then there's no gym for the rest of the year, and you'll make that same resolution next year.
Right.
So that is at least the process I followed.
Story of my life. Yes.
So why this, and we identified why this happened, right? Because the fitness journey is a tedious one. It's a long one, and you tend to most of the times be doing it alone. And until you see any difference in your body, right, there's no form of gratification that you get. And for that change in your body to occur, it'll take you a month, 2 months at least of continuous training and following some sort of a diet, right? So people just drop off before that point. If you reach that point, there's a tendency that you might continue, right? But majority of the people just drop off before that. So what we realized was, how do we try and motivate people, even if they don't do everything, even if they don't get a six-pack in the end of 6 months, how do we make sure their general fitness levels are improved till then? Right? And that's when the Steps That Go idea kind of started forming, where we identified the simplest form of exercise, which is walking. Right? Because then there's not too many excuses you can give as to why you didn't walk, right? Because you can walk inside your house, you can walk around your desk in office, you can do whatever, right? So walking is what we identified as the first touch point. We are, as the Steps That Go concept matures, you'll see that we'll do a lot more than just walking. But we started off with walking, and the idea was to make sure that we gamify it to a high level of degree. We add a lot of social elements, so you have other people that you're involved with while you're getting pushed to at least walk a little bit more than you did yesterday. And we added short-term and long-term rewards to the mix, so that you're constantly motivated and there's a tangible goal that you're trying to reach. There isn't necessarily the change in your body structure, because that will happen and that will be your biggest reward. The rewards that are given inside the app will be a cherry on top, is the thought process behind what Steps That Go started as. And
so how did it begin for you? So you have this idea, but at this point, which year was this?
The idea was in 2018.
18, right? So at this point, you know that you're already entering a space which is reasonably, I wouldn't say cluttered, but it already has some people with a head start to you, right?
Yes.
And some of the devices are sort of some of the wearables are also sort of ahead of you in this space. So how were you? What were you thinking? Are your chances? What was the vision at this point in time?
At this point of time, nobody was rewarding fitness. Nobody was rewarding movement. So we had a clear USP when it came to starting out from Steps That Go, right? And that was the first touch point. That was going to be the first hook. It still is the first hook, right? We're building a lot over that. So the first hook was that the point was to not have any barrier. As you rightly said, there were fitness wearable devices that, like Fitbit and everything, that had a certain amount of penetration into the market, and there were apps that were counting your steps also, right? But what we wanted to do was remove that barrier completely. If you have the point of Steps That Go is that if you have a Fitbit, what you would have noticed in the Fitbit community is the other person will have to have a Fitbit for you to be socially interacting with them and competing against each other, right, or motivating each other, right? We wanted to take that barrier out. What we want to do is sync all the possible wearable devices to the Steps That Go account. So if I'm a Garmin user, you're a Fitbit user, we can still compete against each other on Steps That Go. Right, so that was the point. We wanted to try and get everybody together on one platform that had no barriers, because you can still use, without any wearable device, you can still use Steps That Go from just your smartphone. Right, and that was essentially the reason why we knew that we couldn't charge the users directly, at least just for these features, right? So all the revenue streams we had coming in were through advertisements and B2B partnerships. Right. So that is how it started. And to be very honest with you, because of how Indians function, we knew the rewards would be a good hook. And luckily enough, so just a little bit before this, what we did was, as I said, three of us, me and Misal, started talking about the idea. As the idea kind of resonated well with both of us, Misal was like, we have to get Abhay in, because Misal and Abhay had worked together in folk media, and Abhay at that time was working with Book My Show, right? So we involved Abhay, and interestingly enough, Abhay was working on remember the pet idea I spoke to you about?
Yes.
Abhay was working on the exact idea with somebody else.
Oh, wow.
At that point of time. And interestingly enough, even he wasn't completely convinced in that idea, right? And that's when we spoke to him about Steps & Go, and he's like, no, it's confidential, I can't tell you, but it's something to do with pets. And me and Masala are just looking at each other saying, oh my God, this can't be happening. So obviously, so then we spoke to him about Steps & Go, and then he was really excited about that, right?
So in a way, both of you, in fact, all of the co-founders had gone to the dogs before you sort of started Steps & Go.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a very poor joke. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, that was what.
And also the other thing is, all of you seem to have, across BMS and folk media and this, a very, very mainstream marketing sort of an early career before you guys turned entrepreneurs.
Yes, that is exactly why.
Is that a strength or a weakness for a founding team?
That is a huge strength, I think, right? I think better diversity always helps. Because now, even if you see the revenue streams of Steps & Go, currently the first ones we tackled were what we were used to, right? And that worked out really well for us, because all of us were from a similar background, so all of our ideas kind of had some sort of coherence when we made them and kind of executed them. So it helped, because what we laid down as the basic plan really, really worked for Steps & Go, and all of us had as an entrepreneur, what happens is you have to learn everything, right? As you start moving towards it. We learned that the hard way, right? So it helped that our first form of revenue and the first form of revenue that we were banking on, all of us knew in and out. So that kind of helped us not struggle in the beginning, because that revenue stream really stabilized us, and we aren't funded, right? It's completely bootstrapped, and now we are a 30-member team.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of helped us get to that without any problems, because we knew what we were doing.
Is that how you always wanted it to be? You wanted it to be a bootstrap venture?
Yes, so again, this is something that is a little bit controversial, right? All three of us believe that if we are building something, it needs to start making money for it to sustain itself. We can't be in a place where we go just build the product, ask for money, and then start spending and on user acquisition and say 2 years down the line is when we'll make money. Right? For us, that concept just doesn't get digested well. So we were very clear that we will have a proof of concept. We will have a proof of concept that makes money, and that's when we'll go and raise a round really to scale. And now, 1 year down the line after launching, that is when we've reached this place, right? Till now, we've been completely self-sufficient. Even now, we don't really need to raise money because we've been profitable from month 2, right?
Oh, wow.
So we don't really need to raise money. The point is to scale the operations to try and acquire the team that we want to, is why we are looking for the investment now. But it's not really for just user acquisition, because when I get to Steps & Go, I'll tell you about why we are not as concerned as we should be about this, right? We are obviously concerned, that's the wrong word, but why I am not stressing on this factor as much as I should be.
Right. That's actually why you're not stressing as much. It should be a wonderful place for us to take a very short break on the Filter Coffee podcast. When we come back, we will understand why Shivjit should be stressed, or he thinks he should be stressed. And I also wanted to ask him about the first user on the platform, sort of an experience. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, welcome to another amazing week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. While we're still going through lockdown, let me recommend a few quick shows for you to listen to. Check out Uncle Please Sit with Joel and Tushar. Really enjoyed that show. They unpack some of the greater issues that we're facing, and I think you'll enjoy that. Also, do check out The Traveling Professor. That's a fun show that I think you're really going to enjoy as well. Pulyabazi is a great show. It's a Hindi show about policy and things like that. They had a great episode last week. A close friend of mine from college, Joy Paul, was the guest. They talk about different social networks being used for different things. Very cool show. And lastly, let me tell you about Simplified. Simplified did a live episode last week, and we're making the first part of that available on their feed right now. So do definitely check that out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Welcome back to the Filter Coffee Podcast. We're speaking with Shivjeet on his journey with Steps That Go. Before we went on a break, you were talking about why you're not worried. But I just wanted to take a couple of steps back. For a company which 4 of you have put together and bootstrapped it, and in a space which is really as exciting as this, I think I would love to know about the zero moment of truth, right? When you took it out there and when the first of users started to join. What was that moment? And can you walk us through how it happened?
Sure, that is also an interesting story. So we actually, Misal's dad's old office was what we were operating from. So in the middle of 2018 is when we started working on the product. Abhay and Misal have literally built the whole app themselves, right? To begin with. When we started, when Steps That Go's first iteration was ready, it was built completely by Abhay and Misal.
Wow.
Me sitting around trying to get brands and ideating on everything product related, but I didn't help in the tech side, right? So technically, I didn't have a role to play until the app was completely built. So I was essentially.
And which part of the country were you guys operating?
We were operating from Andheri, Eastern Bombay, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So then, interestingly enough, we had the product ready on the 10th of Jan, 2019. And that's when I went to NMIMS in Juhu. It's a college,
yes,
right? So I went outside and I showed the application not to get people to download it at all, right? It was more to say that, see boss, we've released this on the iOS and the Play Store. So why don't you see it and give me your feedback as to what you think about the application, right? Because right now only our close family and our extended family were testing the application for us. Until then, there was no outside member. So 10th of Jan is when it went live. So I went to NMIMS and I showed it to a couple of kids, just getting their feedback on, do they understand what the app is? And the first feedback I got was complete and utter disbelief, right? They're like, this can't be. You can't be rewarding me for walking. This is ridiculous. Then they went to see the rewards. Then they saw the coin value.
At this point, it'll be interesting, for the uninitiated to actually know how Steps That Go works. You want to just go a little bit into that?
Sure. So the concept is really simple, right? So you download the application and you start walking. For every 1,000 steps you take, you will earn 1 Steps That Go coin, which is the in-app currency. And with this, you'll collect these coins over time. There are lots of gamification filters that will keep making you want to earn more coins. But the idea is you collect enough coins and you can get anything from a discount coupon on a website like Bewakoof, because they are one of our partners, or a completely free, in the past we've given out Avenger bikes, right, from Bajaj. So we are tied up with Bajaj and we gave 3 of our users completely free motorcycles. Right, so the rewards range from a discount on a t-shirt to a completely free bike, right? And you have everything in between that.
Again, just so the audience sort of understand this, what is your relationship with the supply side? For example, what is your relationship with Bajaj, so to say? Why would they be interested in giving away an Avenger?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. This is where the advertising and the media background comes in, right? Because what our bazaar does is works as an advertising tool for these brands. Because we get about 8.5-9 million hits on the bazaar every day, there's a lot of brand awareness that is created on the bazaar that we have, and we have a very curated bazaar. We try to keep the bazaar small so all the brands that are there on the bazaar get enough visibility.
Right.
And we have to actually go tell brands after 4 weeks to kind of take a break, because we want to make sure that the bazaar keeps changing for our user base. There are the deals with these partner brands can vary from a CPS model to free products to just a listing fee, whatever, right? That is our revenue side of things. So they come there basically for advertising, and they have to give us a certain amount of inventory that we give out to our users because they are on our bazaar, right? So that is how the free products kind of flow into the system.
Right. So the media value for the brand is something that you're then converting as a currency into into the gifts and everything else that the user can leverage from the platform, right?
At a base level, absolutely, right? We have a lot of different things that we can do with the coins also as we progress. But on a base level, that's how the bazaar works.
Amazing, right? You were talking about the zero moment of truth on your platform.
Yes. Yeah. So, and now that we are clear about how the app works, right? So then
you were at NMIMS, yeah.
Yes, I was talking to these kids at NMIMS, and the first reaction was disbelief, as I said, right? Because they were like, it can't be, right? I can't be rewarded for just walking to my college and coming back home. That's impossible. But then they got a little deeper into it. They realized how the coin value works. Then they realized that they have to walk more on a general note every day to try and maximize their coin earning capacity. So all that I want to touch upon the levels feature if you have the time. I can do that right after this, right?
Yeah.
So just one of the most basic features about StepSetGo and what I meant by a little bit of gamification. This is a very small part of it, but I just wanted to shed some light on how it works and why people get addicted to the system, right? So when you download StepSetGo, you'll be on level 1, right? So you'll download the application. On the first day, no matter how much you walk 30,000 steps, but you can only get 5 coins because your daily earning capacity is 5 coins. So you walk 5,000 steps, you get those 5 coins, that's all you're earning for that day. But what will also happen is you will get a star that indicates that you have reached your daily limit for today. You have to get these stars 3 times in a row to upgrade to level 2. Once you do that, 3 times in a row is on 3 consecutive days. You miss on your second day and you do it on your third day, you'll still be on 1 star, right? You have to get 3 stars in a row to upgrade to level 2. At that point of time, your earning capacity goes to 10 coins. But there's a caveat here. In case you don't hit at least 5 coins, when you're on level 2, you'll get a flag. You get 3 flags in a row, you'll downgrade. Right. So what we do is basically as you level up, your earning capacity increases, but your minimum amount of steps that you have to take every day is also set for you. So that's how we create the habit of walking more. We also change the color of the application. All your friends can see that you've upgraded or downgraded, and that kind of brings in the addicting factor of why I want to stay on that level 5 color, because all my friends can also see it and my earning capacity is also there, right? So interesting stories started coming up where my friend used to call me and tell me, my wife is taking me out for a walk at 11:30 in the night because of your damn app, because she doesn't want to downgrade, right? So those kind of stories started coming in, and we were really happy that it was working to such a degree. Okay, back to NMIMS. I'm sorry to have gone off in this direction, but yeah, so they understood how it works, right? And we had a referral program that was online even then, right? So suppose I invite you to the application, I'll get 5 SG coins. Right. So after I showed it to a couple of kids, after I knew that there was a certain difficulty in understanding the application, which we worked on right after. But by the time I came back from NMIMS to where Abhay and Misal were sitting and banging their heads to try and solve problems that had just occurred as we went live on the App Store and Play Store, we had 50 more downloads. By the month, and that's all, right? Because of this kind of organic spillover in that college.
Right.
And just to keep things in perspective, by March and April of 2019, we were getting 56,000 downloads a day. That was the kind of explosion we had when it came to the kind of organic growth that we got. And right now we are sitting at about 5.5 million registered users on our platform.
How does this map with what, you must have done this initial Excel sheet in terms of the kind of growth you will see in the first 6 months, etc. Right? How do this compare to those working sheets?
Our target was 20,000 users every month in the first 6 months. we had crossed, I think, 2.2 million by the end of the first 5. Right. So there was a drastic difference there. The advertising and the ad revenue also gave us more flexibility to get different products to the users that we buy for them, because there is some revenue coming in from there, so we keep it more exciting for our users. So we use that to buy basically get into deals with brands to buy these products and give it away to our users, right? So we got more flexibility there. Sorry.
At the beginning, you had mentioned about how the problem with the Indian fitness regime is not in starting it, which everyone seems to be able to do, but is in sort of continuing it, right? And which is why I feel your idea of incentivizing it is so beautiful. Has it been attempted since you started? Do you have others sort of playing this game at this point?
Yes, we do have a few competitors, right? We do have a few of them doing very similar things to what we are doing, and we take that as a good sign. Because if more and more people are entering the field, it means that the field is actually making enough sound and enough people are interested in it, right? So there is potential for it to just basically explode to a larger degree. So we like the fact that people are coming into the marketplace. They're looking at this and saying, okay, this is a good potential market or subcategory to be in. And the more the merrier, right?
Right. And who did you when you were creating your bullseye user for this sort of an app, who was it? And is it panning out the way you had originally envisioned it in terms of your target user for the app?
So basically, when we started thinking about the concept of Steps & Go, for us, the audience was the general public, right? Because we didn't want to focus on the people that buy gym memberships or buy online workout training modules and everything, because they, to some degree, already are in that process that me, Misal and Abhay were in, right? But the problem doesn't stop with us. It kind of goes forward for everybody that is going out for a walk per se, right? So my mother goes out for walks every day. It's something that the app had to resonate with her also. It could be somebody that so basically it could be a grandparents who have the walking schedule fit in their timetable, but they just don't track it. Now what happens is we wanted this to become such that, and I'll talk about a case study that happened here also. We wanted it to become a kind of a dinner table talk where the grandparents are talking to their grandchildren about how many steps they took. Right? Because now it's really transcended over all the categories that we would have had barriers on.
Right.
So we wanted it to be simple enough to get adopted by all these target audiences and not focus onto one. The point was to get all the wearable devices, all the different phones together to have one place to track all of it, right? So again, talk about the actual TG, there are low-hanging fruits of who will adopt our application first. The point was to try and get those people to pass it on to all these people. So everybody's kind of inside the application.
Right. So in a way, your target group is fairly wide.
Large. Yes.
It seems like things have gone very well for you right from the moment you started, right from your NMIMS session up until now.
Yes.
But at any point in time in this journey, did you ever feel like you might not make it?
Luckily enough, no. Because it's been firefighting from day one, right? Because at one point of time, if you counted the number of Steps & Go people, like employees, like me, Misal, Abhay, Rohan was the first employee, right? So all of us handling the kind of people that are using the application, the ratio was, I think, 350,000 or 400,000 users to one employee.
Right.
So we didn't have a chance of thinking that, it might not work. It was more of, how do we solve this problem this one is having? How do we solve this problem? The app is not working well on, let's say, Nokia phones. So how do we solve that problem? There are too many complaints coming in. So how do we actually sit and reply to each and every one of them? Because that has been our strategy from the beginning. There should not be even one customer, basically an issue that is raised to us that doesn't go unreplied to, right?
Right.
So all those kind of things kind of kept us so busy and it was like sprinting from day one, right? So we hadn't had a chance to stop and think why it wouldn't work. It was more of how do we solve all these issues that are coming in, because more and more people are adopting the problem and we don't want to basically discourage them or give them a reason to why they don't like the product, right? We want the experience to be as good as possible.
Which is awesome and very, very heartening to hear. But as an extension of this, if you had to do it again, right? If all of you had to sit down and discuss about, if you had to do it again, what would you change? Would you change anything? With the benefit of hindsight now.
I would love to have the experience we have now when we started off, right? We would have solved so many problems that we kind of struggled with, had so many all-nighters for working on these things.
Give us an example of a problem you would have solved differently.
Okay, there are lots now. Let me try and think of one that kind of gets an element of fun in it, right? So, the server issue is something that we've been having. So our servers tend to, because we've had an explosion in the kind of users that we have, right? Our servers, because you have to scale the servers for the kind of traffic that is coming in, we didn't handle, essentially, it's not that we didn't handle it well, it was more of we weren't prepared for the kind of inflow that came in. And because of that, in the starting days, at least the first 3-4 months, we had really rocky servers because we had too many people using the application and we weren't prepared for those many people coming in, and the servers used to go down and people used to not be able to access the application. Interestingly enough, people started making memes on what happens to their life without Steps & Go. So that was encouraging for us, saying, I have nothing to do, I don't have Steps & Go, right? So that was encouraging enough, and that kind of pushed us. But having stability of the application through even the initial parts would have really made us make a positive impact to all the users that kind of came on then and dropped off because the app wasn't working as it was intended to, right? And our brand ambassadors were their friends because they were really pushing their friends to get the application, so they get their 5 coins, and also they involve their friends in the whole journey of Steps & Go, right? So we would have really it would have been interesting to not have those and create a positive impact on all those negative impacts that we caused in the beginning. But I think that's a parcel of this thing, right?
Right.
Interestingly, one more thing that happened was we were giving out gifts through Amazon, and the codes, not Amazon, a partner of ours, and there were, I think, about 100 odd people that got the same code because a script ran wrong. So then what we had to do was basically contact each and every one of them and give them a new code because the mistake was on our side, right? So those kind of small problems that came up, and then that caused us to work on only that instead of different things that we had planned, just to make sure that our users that have actually spent their coins haven't spent it for nothing, right? That is our fault. So we have to make sure that all those things get sorted out. So it comes from that level. Right?
Hey, this was great, but what will be more fun is if you had any philosophical learnings, right? I mean, because these are fairly tactical.
So in hindsight, what we learned was we started, due to our inexperience, we started setting. So from a user perspective, we started setting standards that we couldn't live up to, right? In terms of at what time do you get, how many coins you can earn during the day, right? So we started off by thinking that everything is, so you could earn a lot more coins when we started off, because we didn't know how impactful it would be on our balance sheet if we let 1% of the users earn a lot more coins than 99% of the other users, because these guys just work a lot more than everybody else, right? So setting the goals for the user was a problem that we had to kind of get inside the application. Once these people started using it, we had to morph that into getting people to set their expectations where we can manage to satisfy all of them. Right, so we had to change a couple of things drastically. We changed the level system about 4 months ago, and we gave an explanation to why. Right, we are very open about why we are changing things in the application, because at the end of the day, Steps & Go needs to be sustainable if they want to continue their journey on Steps & Go, right? So that is something that, in case we would have cracked earlier, we wouldn't have set those wrong expectations to begin with, and we wouldn't. And the good part is, a lot of our users understood why we were doing it. We had a few focus groups where we called our users to our office, asked them that we are planning to change. This is a big change. It's going to impact them. It's going to lower their earning capacity. It might make free products a lot more expensive than they are now. And they were very receptive to it. They're like, okay, now you've explained to me why you have to do it, and if you don't do it, there won't be a Steps & Go 6 months down the line. So yeah, sure. We are on board. Just don't make it too drastic, so we are not motivated enough to walk, right?
Right.
So that having those learnings at the beginning, obviously it's impossible to have them, right? You'll only get those learnings after you start actually making the product and interacting with the users and people start using it.
Absolutely.
But having thought a little more about that in the beginning would have helped us quite a bit, and not set wrong expectations when we started off.
Right. That makes complete sense. We're recording this on the 15th of May. They are knee deep, probably throat deep into COVID. how are people using your app today during the lockdown differently from earlier? What has been the COVID impact for you?
So luckily, being a small organization and having the tech geniuses that Abhay and Misal are, and them getting people to help them with the tech side of the product, what we have been able to do is move fairly quickly on when when COVID hit us, right? So before COVID, Steps & Co used to reward you on a multiplier when you walked outside. In the coin earning side of things, right? So if you walked outside, you used to go get more coins as opposed to you walking inside the house.
Right.
The first change that we did when we did it is we ran a campaign called Counting on You, because we believe that everybody is responsible for staying indoors to make sure that the virus is contained, right? So we told them that everybody's counting on you to stay indoors, and we at Steps & Go will count your steps while you're indoors. To make sure that you keep walking, right? So we switch the multiplier. So now what happens is if you walk indoors, you get more coins as opposed to you walking outdoors.
Right.
So that was the first stage that we did. We kind of put in a series of different challenges that people can do in the comfort of their homes. Obviously, these are walking related, movement related challenges to keep people motivated, because we knew that binge watching Netflix was a trend that was going on.
Yeah.
Right? So we wanted to make sure people get off the couch. To do that, we also started something called Turbo Time. So 5 times or 6 times a day, you'll have a 15-minute window where you get a very high multiplier for your steps. So at least 6 times a day for 15 minutes, you're making people get up and walk out of the fact that you can earn a lot more coins and you'll hit your daily goals. Right? We made the upgrading and downgrading system a lot easier, so people didn't lose motivation because they were downgrading, because we got a lot of complaints saying, I can't walk, I don't want to downgrade. That comes back to the addicting factor of the level system, right? So we changed that, and we also, interestingly enough, added a new layer of things, because we saw that people were sitting and playing games on their mobile phones. We wanted to try and give them that solution on Steps & Go, but we wanted it to somehow relate to fitness, right? We wanted it to be something that makes them move. Right. Just putting a game on our platform doesn't make sense, because where's the connect in that, right?
Yeah.
So we gamified that to a degree where it's a hyper casual game, right? The game lasts, let's say, 30 to 40 seconds, but you'll get only 5 chances. Suppose you and me are friends on Steps & Go. You play your 5 chances, you get a score of, let's say, 100, okay? And then I play and I get a score of 140. You've already ran out of all 5 chances. The only way you can get more chances to compete with me is to walk. So for every 300 steps, you'll get 1 extra life.
Right. Right.
So then that kind of, through games, we got people to walk around more. My mother's a good example of being completely addicted to one of these games, and her, basically she was a level 3 walker, right? Now she's a hard level 5 sustaining warrior that kind of always is on level 5, because I see her continuously walking. I ask her why, she's like, I'm out of lives in that game. So it's worked really well, right?
That is fascinating. So in a nutshell, for you, safe to say so as these campaigns worked, are people using this more frequently than they did in a pre-COVID situation?
Yes, of course. So basically what has happened is the time on app. So even though Steps & Go is a fitness application that doesn't really do workout videos at home, even then we have about an average time spent of 8 to 9 minutes before COVID that users were spending on the application, which is quite high for a fitness app, right? Because there are lots of things to do. The social angle, gamification angle, I'm not going to get into that again, but all those things kind of get people to check out their friends' thing, check out the bazaar, all that, right? But after COVID, because we've introduced all these factors also, what has happened is our average time spent on the application has gone upwards of 12 to 14 minutes. It fluctuates a little bit, but the number of the time users spend on the app has increased.
That's amazing.
Right. So, but overall, obviously, because of the constraints of you being in your house, the total number of steps that are being taken has reduced. And I don't think there's anything we can do about that, right? Just generally, people are walking less and there's nothing we can do. But we can try and do our part to make sure they're motivated and they don't get off the couch. So that is what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. So I have to ask you this. Are you a believer of this whole new normal concept that's been floating around? And if yes, how is this entire COVID piece gonna impact your business, right? Like, I mean, when I look at apps or other players in the similar space, For example, a CureFit is almost entirely thinking in terms of moving its audience to online, right? And of course, it's a chronic problem in their case. And they've adapted to it rather beautifully as well, right? In terms of the speed and agility with which they've done. How is this going to change you and your organization?
So our aim was to move towards that anyway. As I said, right, we are just doing steps right now. It's going to get more integrated, right? iOS phones, if you have an Apple Watch, it syncs perfectly, right? So the first step towards that is syncing with different fitness devices. Then the plan is without trying to put the full roadmap out there, we are trying to be a more holistic fitness platform, right? We are already building stuff that makes it so. So in terms of the new normal, I don't think, basically, I just read an article today morning where the WHO has said that Corona is here to stay. Coronavirus is going to be one of the different things that count in the early deaths of humanity, right? That's the article I read, and there's nothing taking us beyond that. But the paranoia of this, right, I don't see it lasting. So till when the curve is high, we will see a lot of paranoia in regard to this. But going forward, I think it will become something that we are over time. It's something that we'll adapt to, and life will go on the way it was before. Right? I don't think we'll get stuck in this rut forever. Right? I think that's obnoxious to think about that. There has to be something more than this to make sure that this is the new normal. Right? I think this will go on for a year, sure, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, worst case scenario. But after that, things will go to normal because it will be a part and parcel of what we are living with, right? So I don't think this will continue. I think going forward, I think the gyms will start opening up again. I think all of it will go back to normal, right? There might be a little more hand washing in play, but
that's exactly how I feel about the world as well. Yeah.
Right? Because now it's something that you have to live with. You can't stay indoors forever, right? It's just not something how the world can operate with, right? And I think as time goes on, you will be like, there is a chance of me to get this, and that is the way life is. Right? And I think that is what will happen over time. I know it sounds a little odd of me trying to say it right now when the paranoia is really high, because people will turn back and say, how can you say this?
I'm on the exact same page. In fact, I just wrote about it today as well. I can relate to what you're saying. And I think that will probably is a good thing for Steps That Go as well, isn't it?
Yes, it will. So basically, it doesn't really affect us to the degree that it might affect other applications, because we are trying to become a more holistic platform, and we'll adapt to whether it's outside or inside. It will adapt to whether you are working out at a gym and how we are tying up with those gyms and all that, to maybe just doing workouts at home, right? So that flexibility is there. So I don't think that will be a problem for Steps That Go. I think the paranoia is something that will go down, and then we'll go back to how we were in some time.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, we usually end the episode by asking the guest what he or she is watching, listening, or reading at this point. How are you using the lockdown? What are you catching up on?
So as I spoke to you earlier, right, my day consists of me getting up, sitting on my work desk and going back to sleep, right? So what I've been trying to do is, obviously I haven't been, because of the tight schedule, I haven't been able to pick up a book, but Medium constitutes most of my reading, right? In terms of advertising, UI, UX, all those articles that keep coming. I'm a very diligent user of Medium when it comes to all my know-how and everything that's happening in the industry, to try and keep updated with it, right?
Interesting.
So that is one side of things that I'm constantly doing. But and that's my downtime, right? When I'm not taking calls, when I'm not doing something that I have to do, I'm just scrolling through it, because it's something that really interests me, right? So that is one thing. So in terms of shows, I tend to binge watch once I start liking something. So I try to stay away from that, just to give you. So I don't want to get into a rut of getting inside, getting entrenched in watching a show, because then I'll just lose out on sleep, and then I won't be as productive as I can be, right? So that is why I've stayed away from that.
Right.
In terms of the books, I was a big fan of fiction until very recently, where I told myself about 4 years back, when I told myself, this is the time I stop reading fiction except the Game of Thrones books, right? So I'm just waiting for the next Game of Thrones book, and I'm one of those guys that basically doesn't watch the shows and is waiting for the last book to come out, because I feel that the shows will kind of take my imagination of what I imagine the whole scenario to be and change it as to how it
Interesting. So have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
Picked up the books after watching the first season, and then I haven't watched after that, right? Because then I finished all the books.
Really?
And then I'm just waiting for the next one to come out because I couldn't transition back to different fiction novels that I was reading before that because the depth that the Game of Thrones books have kind of makes the books that I was reading before that a little lackluster, right? So I moved into non-fiction from there because I thought that was a change that was necessary in life in general, right?
Interesting ROI. This for HBO, which sort of spends all those billions of dollars creating that and then sort of loses it to the paperback that you bought for probably a couple of thousand rupees.
Yeah, that is true. But I will watch it after. I'm sure I will watch it after I read the last book.
Hopefully, interesting. Okay, so there is still hope, right?
Yeah, I will definitely watch it after this thing. But the point is, apparently the story's gone in two different directions, which I don't, because my girlfriend keeps calling me back and asking me, can you tell me what happened to this character in the books? Because now I remember only what I have seen, right? So I was like, don't tell me what you have seen. Yeah. I'll tell you what happens to this character.
And most people want to unsee what they saw in the last season, and that's I think is equally true as well. So,
it's amazing. I still don't know what happened, right? So please don't say if you're planning. No.
Excellent. Hey, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for being on the show. Wishing you and Steps That Go the best of years in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karthik. It was lovely being here. Bye-bye.
So that was our show. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And filter_coffee. That's coffee with a K on Instagram.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.